Today, there was another very interesting tweet by Max Blumenthal. Did you catch this on Twitter today? So as you know, one of the battles that I have been forced to fight over the past 2 weeks is this conspiracy theory that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Tomorrow, it will be 2 weeks since he was murdered. 2 weeks ago, within 24 hours, 48 hours, there were many people that rushed to judgment and they automatically assumed that Israel had a hand in his killing. At the outset, and for the past 2 weeks, I have said, I don't believe that's the case. I don't think there's evidence. And for that, I got called a shill. People said I sold out. I took money from Israel. People are saying I'm defending Israel. I'm like their defense attorney, making the case to exculpate them from Charlie Kirk's murder. All I am about is the truth. I want to know who killed Charlie Kirk. If Israel's at fault, and I think that's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. I would say that. If I thought that was the case, if I thought, that was a plausible scenario, I would tell you that. And I would be pushing for further examination of the evidence and all the rest. But I don't think that's the case. And I want to talk about a tweet that came out today. I think it's so interesting. One of the biggest arguments, one of the biggest pieces of evidence that was used in the past 2 weeks about this theory that Israel was involved in killing Charlie Kirk, among others, is that Charlie Kirk was offered a $150 million bribe by Israel, effectively to double down on his support for Israel. If he was questioning, if he was skeptical, there was this line that went viral. They said that Netanyahu had offered him $150 million to buy his silence, which is an enormous sum of money. Annual budget for Turning Point is $140 million. So if Charlie Kirk takes $150 million from Netanyahu, they double their annual revenue, and all they have to do is stop questioning one issue. And so people said Charlie Kirk turned that offer down, and that's why they killed him. Now, if that were true, that would be pretty extraordinary. That would show you how much Netanyahu wanted to absolutely control Turning Point. Maybe Turning Point was pro-Israel, but if he was willing to shell out $150 million to eradicate any doubt, if there was any at all, even a slight amount of doubt, that would show you how much Netanyahu cared, not only about Turning Point, but that it was absolutely rock solid and unwavering. If Charlie Kirk turned that down, equally, that would demonstrate his defiance, that he is absolutely committed to questioning Israeli influence. He is set on this journey. He's evolving on the issue. He's turning against them. Well, where do we get this $150 million figure? We got it from Candace Owens and Max Blumenthal. Candace Owens and Max Blumenthal intimated that a major donation was made and that Charlie Kirk rejected it. Candace Owens, pressing Bill Ackman, said, "What do you have to say about the $150 million about Tucker Carlson?" Well, it turns out today we hear from Blumenthal and Candace Owens, both. They say, we never said Netanyahu offered $150 million. We never said that. They never said that either. So last week, each of them posted, we're not saying Israel killed Charlie Kirk. We never said that. This week, they're saying, we never said Netanyahu offered him $150 million. We never said that at all. Okay, so what actually are they saying now? Because if you rewind 2 weeks ago, this was the case that was made. And I want to just lay it out. I promise it'll be brief and then we'll move on. I don't want to talk about this every night forever, but this is important because my credibility is now on the line. People are questioning my credibility. The case that was made to us 2 weeks ago is that Charlie Kirk was defiant against the Israel lobby. He was offered a $150 million bribe to buy his silence. He rejected it. They said he was ambushed at a retreat with the Jewish billionaire Bill Ackman in August, where they staged an intervention. And Jewish donors were screaming at him, telling him, you must be pro-Israel. And he left that meeting feeling blackmailed. This was the circumstantial evidence around about September 10th when he died that powerful forces were furious with him. They tried to bribe him. They tried to intervene. Maybe there was intimidation, menacing. Charlie Kirk felt afraid. He was telling people privately he felt blackmailed. He thought they might kill him. And so when he died, about a month after these developments took place, people said, well, clearly Israel killed him because they couldn't buy him. Israel killed him because they couldn't buy him. Their intervention failed. He couldn't be blackmailed. He was going to go on and resist them. So they took him out. And they took him out. And then the theory went, they took him out so that they could install a solidly pro-Israel successor in his place, someone like Ben Shapiro. They said, and once under the control of Ben Shapiro, Turning Point would not allow anti-Semites like Tucker Carlson to speak at their events. And once Turning Point was completely under their control, the pro-Israel consensus would be protected. Well, what if we found out in the past 2 weeks about each part of this narrative, which was promulgated by Max Blumenthal and Candace Owens? We found out that there was no $150 million bribe. There was donor money, and I heard this from people too, but it wasn't $150 million. Maybe it was $2 million. That's a far cry. That there is a world of a difference. I heard from people that Kirk turned down money. We're now hearing figures like $2 million. Okay, this is a group that made $143 million per year. $2 million is what? Less than 2%? It's peanuts. Compared to 100% of their budget, that's a big difference. So we found out that $150 million, oh, no one ever said that. That's not real. That's fake. Okay, so he was not offered a bribe that was worth 100% of their revenue. Maybe there were some donors that were squeamish. We're talking $1 million, $2 million. Sounds like a lot of money, but you got to consider the proportions here. Then, about that Bill Ackman retreat, the intervention where Charlie Kirk felt blackmailed, what have we found out about that? Well, Charlie Kirk actually organized that event. He handpicked the guest list. He sent out the invitations. It was advertised as a Turning Point retreat. Turning Point USA organized the event at a hotel that Bill Ackman paid for. These were all influencers that Charlie Kirk selected who would go and do Turning Point events on college campuses. And on the contrary, even though it was represented to us that Charlie Kirk felt blackmailed, Max Blumenthal since issued a clarification and said, well, the anonymous sources said Charlie Kirk felt emotionally blackmailed. So once again, it was represented to us that Charlie Kirk happened to be at a thing. They ambushed him, screamed at him, and they left him feeling blackmailed. What do you think when you hear blackmail? Do you think they got dirt on him? They're going to destroy his reputation or his career or his family? Well, in reality, he arranged the event. He picked the guest list. There was some heated debate, but otherwise, within cordial sessions about Israel, that was on the docket. That was the planned discussion. And only after the fact does Blumenthal say he didn't feel blackmailed in the conventional sense. He felt emotionally, morally blackmailed, as in guilt-tripped. Okay, well, that's not the same thing. And after the fact, Charlie Kirk remained in contact with Bill Ackman anyway. Then, after Charlie Kirk was killed, who took up the mantle? Was it someone reliably pro-Israel, a Jewish person, a Zionist, someone who has been in the pocket of Israel like Shapiro? No, it was his widow, Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk, who apparently knows everything about it. She says that she got word from the top about everything that happened to Kirk, and she doesn't believe it's Israel. So it's not going to be Shapiro picking up that bloodstained microphone and making it pro-Israel. It's Kirk's grieving widow. Then you have the final part. They said, well, they needed to secure control over the organization because Netanyahu and Bill Ackman had this problem with Tucker Carlson. And Ackman in particular wanted Tucker banned from Turning Point events. Well, Tucker spoke at the memorial on Sunday. Tucker is scheduled to speak at one of the campus events in Indiana later this season. And I think it's a safe assumption that Tucker will be speaking at AmericaFest in December. So that whole theory, basically every piece of it seems to be falling apart. There wasn't a $150 million bribe. This intervention did not happen as described. Shapiro did not succeed Kirk. And if Tucker is going up at the memorial and dog whistling about hummus-eating Pharisees that killed Christ, did they achieve what they wanted with this high-profile, high-visibility public killing? I don't think so. Now, listen, the only reason I continue to bring this up, people say you're covering for Israel. It's not about covering for them, it's covering for me. Because when this happened, I found it very compelling that probably this was a left-wing, transgender-loving shooter. I thought that was the most likely explanation for this. I said, you know, here's the case that it's Israel, and I faithfully laid out the case as represented by Blumenthal on my show the Monday after Kirk was killed. I said, however, I don't find it convincing. This is it. These are the facts, but I don't believe it. And people said, well, you're a shill. They said, you're pivoting. You're a shill. You're pivoting. You sold out. You don't believe Israel did this thing. So if you don't blame Israel for literally everything forever, then that means you're a traitor. So basically, ever since that has been the insinuation, I see this all over social media, I said, yeah, well, now this theory needs to be destroyed. And I said, I laid this out all throughout last week. The reason why is because we here are about the truth. If we start to get careless, if we start to get sloppy, we lose our credibility. And when you start talking about energy weapons and trap doors and 600 decoy shooters, did you see Candace Owens' show from yesterday? She said that there were 2 decoy snipers to distract everybody from the trap door that opened up underneath where Charlie Kirk was shot from the underground tunnels beneath the campus. Who takes this seriously? Who would take any of us seriously after that if this is what we're going with? And it's about the methodology. Do you start with the facts and the evidence and what we can prove and then build the theory? Or do you start with the theory? Everything's a conspiracy. Everything is the Jews, the Masons, the FBI. And then do you assemble the facts in a way that satisfies the theory, no matter how convoluted? Okay, so this isn't true. Well, maybe there's energy weapons. Well, this isn't true, so maybe it's... And you can literally see people in the audience, they're outdoing each other. It starts with, well, maybe the sniper was, I don't know, an Israeli. Okay, well, maybe that shooter was Tyler Robinson, but there's a second shooter on the right. Okay, well, maybe it's, that guy didn't fire a bullet. Maybe they were both decoys and someone was underground. Well, no, the trap door was off to the side, so maybe the camera contained a device that shot a bullet. Well, there's only one wound, so there's no exit wound. Maybe there was no bullet at all. Maybe it was I literally saw people saying it was an energy weapon. And Sam Francis wrote about this in the 1990s, one of the legends, one of the progenitors of the pro-white, Israel-critical right-wing movement. He wrote in the 90s One of the biggest detriments of mobilizing the middle American radicals against Israel and its influence in America, against Jewish power, against the left-wing multiracial hordes, one of the biggest impediments to us organizing is the kooks, okay? The kooky stuff, the flat earth, aliens, that kind of thing, because it destroys our credibility. Israeli influence is real. Organized Jewry is real. Mass migration and white genocide is real. These are all real things. What the Trump administration is doing is real. The genocide in Gaza, Netanyahu's plan to bring us to war with Iran, that's real. But pretending that Charlie Kirk, who was pro-Israel his entire life, the GOP is controlled by Israel, and Charlie Kirk was a lieutenant in the GOP, as evidenced by this memorial. To pretend like that guy was blown away in some convoluted conspiracy, that's not real. If there were facts that proved it, I would be there. I would be on the motherfucker, but they're not there. And the more desperate and sloppy and dishonest and convoluted that it gets, we destroy our credibility and we make it far less compelling when we're bringing the real evidence about the real stuff. That's why it matters so much. So I see what she's doing, and I think it's a disaster. I think she's immolating her credibility. And I'm talking about Candace Blumenthal. That guy's leftist. I don't trust him at all. But I see that kind of stuff. And I said this last week, when people are feeling emotional and animated, everybody said, we assume it's Israel. Yeah, maybe that makes sense the day after. In weeks, months, it's going to look ridiculous, and we're immolating our credibility. So that's why we got to stay on top of this. And I just love the retractions every week. We never said he was killed by Israel. We never said 150 million. We never said that he was blackmailed. It's like, okay, so what did you say? That really bothers me. Because Blumenthal's article that came out, the Candace Owens show, the Tucker Carlson show, they represented, they insinuated, they implied that was the message. It was Israel killed him because they threatened him. They tried to bribe him. He wouldn't listen. They did that so Shapiro could take over. None of that turned out to be true. Bill Ackman destroyed that narrative because he brought receipts and they didn't dispute a thing he said. Then they said, well, forget that. It's the 150 million. Now they're saying that is never something they claimed either. Yeah, it's looking rough. So anyway, I did just want to touch on that briefly.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to have to agree with Nick on this one here, folks. Also, the assumptions that Nick's working for Israel, I don't know, it's a little bit ridiculous. It's always America first. Kirk would typically speak positive when it came to Israel and his support for them, so the idea of them taking him out seems a little far-fetched, if you ask me. Taking the facts, following the breadcrumb trail to where it often leads, is never a conspiracy. But taking a conspiracy and running with it as an immediate fact is always problematic. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. I also want to give a quick shout out to all the support I see coming in. It's greatly appreciated. Let's keep pushing the message here, folks. I see some great stories in the comments section too from some awesome people. Christ is King. Hope you all enjoyed. Stay informed. Stay tuned, and as always, stay based.